I have very high expectations when Future and Metro Boomin come together and collaborate, and for good reason. They have put out some incredible music over the years on albums, on individual tracks, and you should have high expectations too. And I believe a lot of people are starting to sort of change their minds a little bit on Future as time's gone on. They're looking back at his work, doing a bit of a revisionism for the old trap music that we've seen more recently, and people have kind of become more accustomed to the sound. There was a lot of hate for it back in the day. There was a lot of this isn't real music, this is mumble crap and all that, and that does still exist, don't get me wrong, that is still something that exists, but I do think more people have warmed up to that era of trap, and I think more people now look at Future's best work and only think of it as very positively. It's not quite there yet. I think some people still don't quite appreciate albums like The Wizard or maybe his self-titled album as much as they absolutely should, but I still think DS2 and Monster now are definitely viewed as 2010's great. When you pair that with the fact that Metro Boomin is on his own really strong run as well, with the fact that Heroes and Villains came out not too long ago and did really well for him, also getting a Rap Album of the Year nomination, and probably should have won that category if I'm being honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Michael by Killer Mike. I do think Killer Mike deserved a win for the fact that he's always been really important in the rap game, but in terms of the better album, I mean, I think Metro Boomin probably had the better one there, but that's a separate conversation. We're just looking now at Metro Boomin pretty much entering his most popular phase. You've got Future as well, who's always doing something, and them coming together again to collaborate here just got me very excited. I was very, very hyped to see what we'd get. Once the album's now out, and I've listened to it quite a few times, I don't know if it lived up. I think anyone that's a big Future fan and a big Metro Boomin fan might be happy with this album, but I also feel like if you've never really tapped in to those great tracks that they came through together with all those years back, you might just be okay with this and just kind of nodding along and agreeing with what they give you. But for me personally, I just know that they can do a lot more than this, and I just don't think they've really delivered here. I don't think production-wise we're hearing Metro close to his best. You don't need him at his very, very best. I mean, that's asking for a lot, but he's not even close on some of these tracks, really. And then you've got Future, who, again, you don't need him at his very, very best. Maybe his very, very best was those earlier albums, but still, he's not even that close to his best either. The opener got me interested. It was very cold, it was very icy, it definitely made you feel like they were out for blood, talking about sneak dissing and talking about how they don't trust you, and it was just making you aware of the fact that there may be sort of like enemies being targeted on this album, and let me tell you, we will get to that specific track that does that. But it just kind of made me think, okay, this is interesting, this is engaging, this makes me feel like I'm gonna be like feeling fearful listening to this album. And when you kind of get past that first track, there's just not enough really meat on the bones of a lot of these tracks to make me feel like I'm really immersed in that experience. Maybe for what I was wanting these two to do, I haven't quite got that on this album, but even for what they've given me, like, it feels kind of vibey at times, it feels kind of low-key at times, and I'm just not really latching on to much at all. Like, Future's rapping isn't moving me that much. The beats, like I say, feel subpar for Metro's usual standards. And then the features aren't even all that impressive to me either. You've got Young Metro, second track in, The Weeknd. Would you expect an amazing Weeknd hook or amazing Weeknd singing performance? Yeah, I would, but do you get it? No, he's kind of just whimpering in the background, and it's just kind of like laced into the beat in an uninteresting way, and it just doesn't really add to the atmosphere all that much. He's barely even present on the track. I'm just hoping for a little bit more, but I don't really get that. The skittering beat is pretty low-key too. I don't know, I'm just not really moved by what's going on. There's like this mini beat switch on Ice Attack, which I thought was pretty cool. I welcomed that, actually. I thought that was a much more interesting beat than how the track originally started. But like, I don't know, like when I hear a beat switch, I just want to be a bit more excited and a bit more engaged. And this track didn't really quite move me like that. It was just moving from one boring beat to a slightly more exciting beat to my ears. Claustrophobic is super repetitive as well. I think Future can be really good when he's in that repetitive bag and the hook just kind of keeps popping up, but just the repetition of Claustrophobic, and I just don't know, I just didn't really find myself immersed in what they were trying to do on this track. Like, for a track that's repeating that word so much, I'd at least want to be maybe creeped out, or maybe I would want to feel a little isolated, or maybe the beat would just kind of make me feel a little desolate. Maybe like something from the Yeet album, the most recent Yeet album, of course, 2093, where everything's just so industrial and post-apocalyptic that just makes you give you that really dicey, icy feeling that album did, whereas this track just doesn't really give me that sensation, which was what I'd hope it would. Referencing some of the features again, as I've already mentioned, The Weeknd, some huge names pop up on this album, by the way. Travis Scott on Cinderella. I mean, good God, this should just be fireworks. Metro, Future and Travis, and it's forgettable as hell. It's so forgettable. Travis's feature is just really underwhelming. Like, the kind of ad-libs that are thrown in just feel like nostalgia bait, like throwing it back to those classic Travis songs where he'd just be like, "It's lit," you know, in the background. Like I don't know, it's just kind of him trying to play his greatest hits, but he's not even trying that hard. It's just a bit odd to me. And then the track with Playboi Carti type shit, I do quite like the doomy, really like sort of like I guess like funeral vibes of the beat. It does kind of sound like dark and disturbing, but Carti's feature, a hot take maybe from me, but I'm not really that keen on this whole deep voice thing he's been doing. I thought it was goofy as hell on the Carnival track from the Kanye West album Vultures 1, and Ty Dolla $ign, of course. And on this track, yeah, I just feel like the gimmick's already played out. Before he's even put out an album, I'm already bored of him doing this voice. And you could talk about the technicality of how impressive it is to do what he's doing and all that kind of stuff. I don't really care that much about that if it doesn't at least sound good to me, and I'm just not really that keen on it. I just can't really believe that we're about to hit a point where this album that eventually comes out from Carti, and he's done this voice multiple times, and I'm already potentially bored of it before the album's even out. Like, it's a release schedule issue with Playboi Carti generally, where he just kind of teases things and never puts it out. But yeah, for me personally, I don't know, man, I'm not that into it. And maybe it'll grow on me over time, and maybe I'll look back on this clip of this video that people might resort to and go, how crazy are you for not liking it? Maybe I'll be like that too, and I'll be like, oh, actually, you know what? Now I like it a lot more. But in this moment, having heard it a few times and on this track that isn't that good anyway, yeah, I'm just not really that into it. Maybe the songs need to sound better because the the sample size of having Carnival and this track isn't the best. Like, those two tracks aren't really that strong in their own right anyway. So maybe once we get him over better beats, or maybe once he's in more of the groove of it, I'll like it more. But yeah, for now, he just sounds goofy to me. The feature we have to talk about, though, is the one feature on Like That, which could have had its own video entirely, actually. I could have just done a whole video based on that feature alone, because there's so much to say about it. But good God, Kendrick Lamar on Like That is a huge moment in 2024. In a year where it feels like we've already had so much happen in the world of music. We already had a Nicki, Megan Thee Stallion beef. We've already had huge albums from Ariana Grande, huge album announcements from Beyonce, Taylor Swift, among many other things that's happened already. Kanye West is a huge artist too, that's already dropped. So many things have happened, but now we have a potential huge blowout of a rivalry that we haven't quite witnessed in hip-hop in some time. Kendrick out for blood, coming for potentially both J. Cole and Drake on this track, basically attacking the idea of there even being a big three completely, and just saying it's about a big me. Kendrick's basically saying he's on his own at the top and no one's even close, which I'm not mad at that. In terms of popularity, I know there's going to be Drake stans that jump in and say, Drake's in his own lane in terms of that kind of sales and commercial appeal and that kind of thing. No one would ever argue that. You can't argue numbers. Like, it's objective truths that he always sells huge numbers. But in terms of actual rapping ability, the eye to come out with some concepts that are so unique to the world of hip hop that even years and years ago we've never seen such things. The idea to come out with such incredible ideas for albums and execute them the way they do, and just to be such a recognizable name in hip hop too. Kendrick, it might be on his own kind of grounds, to be honest, but just to be able to come through and absolutely be so vicious, so violent, as he says on the song, as he chose violence, to just tear apart this whole debate about there being a big three, just blows it wide open now. Like, what the hell are we going to get from here? The verse is so fiery, the verse is so amped up. It's just exciting to see where we go from here. And I would not want to be J. Cole or Kid Drake in this situation at all. Because, wow, I don't know if either of them can come out on top of this. I absolutely know for sure that Drake is not coming out on top of this. But Cole is a bit more of a questionable one. But even still, this is really interesting to see. And I just don't think you can ignore this. You can't ignore this. They can't stay quiet. Like, they've absolutely been ripped apart on this verse. The idea of basically being told that there isn't even a big three to begin with. I mean, how can you stay quiet? Your authenticity in hip-hop is already being questioned. Looking at you, Drake, specifically, yes, your authenticity in hip-hop has been questioned for a long time. Mos Def only did it like 3 months ago. He was calling you a pop artist, and now you've got Kendrick coming for you. If you want to stay quiet, you go for it, but I wouldn't. I think you're going to have to say something, and I think Cole will have to too. As I say though, that could get its entirely own separate video on its own, but the track itself is so far and away the best song. And it's not even just for Kendrick, to be honest. I think it's more to do with the fact that Future's flows are really interesting on this track. I think he finds a cool pocket to kind of flow into. I really like the beat is excellent as well. It's the one track that every time this album I play through it, I'm just immediately drawn to this track because it just sounds so different. It's got so much more of a bounce to it. It's got so much more of a, like, so many more layers to how it's kind of produced, whereas some of the tracks are just like basic hi-hats and trap beats, and there's no layers on top of it other than that, whereas this track just feels like it has way more bite to it. And of course you get to Kendrick's verse and it's just fireworks. Running Out of Time is a great example of what I just said there. Like, I can point to so many trap beats that already sound like this, let alone Metro Boomin beats that already sound like this. But there's just the world of trap music. I've heard this beat 100 times before, and it is no surprise when you hear songs like this that there are ignorant people out there that dismiss the genre entirely, because so many beats sound like this. And there's a few tracks on this album where I'm just pretty bored of how derivative the whole thing sounds, and Future just kind of phoning it in, giving us what he's given us for years. Yeah, just a lot of letdowns on this album. I thought Ain't No Love had a bit more fire in Future's delivery. Not the best we've ever heard, but decent. And Everyday Hustle, I thought the soulful sample in the production was much better. I needed more of this, actually. It just had a bit more of something to latch onto. But overall, this album for me just doesn't quite have the bite that I would want to hear from these two coming together. Because like I say, expectations for me are high, and they don't even come close to their best work on this album. Like That is close, but one track out of like 20, it's not enough. Seriously, listen to a track like Radical. If you have dismissed Future for, you know, whatever reason, and you don't really care about his style, go back to songs like Radical. Go back to songs like I Serve the Bass. You cannot tell me that those beats are not some of the most creative in the world of hip-hop in the 2010s. They absolutely are. They're so layered. They're so vast. I Serve the Bass sounds like Rage before Rage even existed. Like, they have so much chemistry together. Metro Boomin has so much up his sleeve, and Future can rap in ways that a lot of people don't give him credit for. None of that shows up on this album. It is pretty mad that this was, you know, set up to be such an exciting event of an album, and yet the best of both of these two artists doesn't even pop up on this. So it's a 5.5 out of 10 from me. Really underwhelmed by this, and I only named a couple of tracks there when I talked about how good these two can be together, but there are so many more than just two. Like, I could go on and on and on, but this video would go on for ages. I don't think anyone really wants to watch that. But yeah, not really the kind of album I was hoping from these two. But, you know, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this is a lot better than I'm giving it credit for? Do you think this will hold up? Do you think it's a bit underwhelming like me? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, do subscribe. Check out my Patreon as well if you want to support me over on there. That would be wonderful. You can get Discord access. You can get shout outs as well. All kinds of stuff. Consider it. At least subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know what I should review next. Like the video. Share it around. Have a good day, most importantly. And goodbye.